Hi everyone, welcome back to another anatomy video this week. I'm going to try to talk to you about the different types of receptors and classifications of those receptors within our nervous system. So let's begin. So as you can see from this flow chart I created, there are three main classes of receptors that you can find within our sensory division of our nervous system. Those classes include the classification based off of the receptor structure, classification based off of the type of stimulus they respond to, and then there's classification based off of their location. So first I want to talk to you about the receptors that are classified based off of their stimulus type, so the type of stimulus they respond to. These include our mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors, photoreceptors, chemoreceptors, and nociceptors. So whenever I think of my mechanoreceptors, I think of mechanics or biomechanics. These are the receptors that respond to touch, pressure, vibration, and stretch, things that occur regularly within our body. So biomechanics is essentially a course that combines physics and chemistry to anatomy and physiology. It always has to do with our movement, our motion, and the different forces and stuff we are acting upon. So because of that, I relate that to our mechanoreceptors, which are responsible for feeling those things so that we can have our biomechanics. So mechanics, mechanoreceptors. Next, we have our photoreceptors. These are the receptors that are responsible for sensing changes in light energy. And because of that, I think of photographs or photography. So regarding photography, whenever you're trying to capture an image as clearly as possible, we usually use flash. And that bright camera flash is bright enough to trigger our photoreceptors. Because of that, I associate my photoreceptors with photography. So next we have our thermoreceptors. Whenever I think of these, I immediately associate them with a thermostat or a thermometer. This is because they are sensitive to changes in temperature like a thermostat. You can also think of a mercury thermometer, in which the mercury moves up or down based on the temperature of the environment. So thermostat and thermometer for our thermoreceptors. So next I'm going to talk to you about our chemoreceptors. Whenever I think of these, I think of chemicals or chemistry. This is because these are the receptors that are responsible for sensing changes in our chemical environment. And because chemistry is all about chemical changes and chemical reactions, I associate my chemoreceptors with chemistry. Next, we have our nociceptors. Whenever I hear these types of receptors, I think no. And why is that? Because nobody likes to feel pain, but our nociceptors let us know about those dangerous stimuli so that we can prevent ourselves from harming our bodies more. If someone were to ask you, hey, can I punch you in the face? You would probably say no, because you don't want to have to trigger your nociceptors to feel that painful blow. So no for our nociceptors. So now I want to talk to you about the classification based off of location. This includes our exteroreceptors, interoreceptors, and proprioceptors. Whenever I think of exteroreceptors, I think external or outside, because these are the receptors that are responsible for sensing changes in our external environment. These could be skin receptors that respond to touch, pressure, pain, or changes in temperature, or even a majority of our special sense organs. Now, whenever we're talking about our interoreceptors, think internal or inside. This is because these are the receptors that are responsible for changes within our internal environment, inside of our body, or as SpongeBob would like to call it, indoors. I wish I could sing like Penny. The last location-based classification of our receptors I want to talk about are our proprioceptors. Now, when I think of these, I think appropriate, because these are the receptors that detect stretch, and we only ever want to stretch our muscles to an appropriate length, because anything beyond that could potentially lead to injury. So appropriate for proprioceptors. Finally, I want to talk to you guys about the receptors that are classified by structure, our simple receptors and those receptors for our special senses. Whenever I think about simple receptors, I think of really anything basic. This is because these are the receptors that respond to our basic general senses. It includes basically all of our receptors from the stimulus class, as well as our muscle senses. So, as you can see in this image on the left, this is an example of one of those simple receptors within our skin. And finally, we have the receptors for our special senses. So this includes our sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, which is pretty simple because I think of all the body parts that are associated with each sense. And in order for each of these senses to work, like for example, our eyesight, we need our photoreceptors. For us to be able to touch and feel things, we need our tactile sensations from our simple receptors. And that's it. Those are our different sensory receptor classes and some tricks that I hope will help you better remember each one. Alrighty, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next week.